Hey y'all, hi. So I've been bitten by the bug to do like a best and worst makeup of 2022 because it's the end of the year and everybody's doing it. And I thought, why not? What fun. But what I think I'm going to do to make the video more robust than just like a laundry list of products is kind of ask myself why, in a more meta sense, each one of these has become my favorite this year. I tried to narrow it down to makeup that I actually tested for the first time in 2022. So it was either new releases from 2022 or something that was new to me in 2022. And the question every time is going to be like, why? What is it about this makeup? And then maybe if I've got the wherewithal, what does that mean about what I think I want from makeup in general, what I think maybe we all want from makeup in general here in 2022, 2023. You know, we'll try to put a philosophical spin on it, but I do feel like I need to give the caveat, even though I am going to be doing the best and worst, the best part of best and worsts, and I don't mean the best part, I mean the part that is like the bests. With videos like this where someone is like giving a rapid fire list of what they're saying is the best makeup, sometimes when I watch this kind of stuff, depending on how I'm doing or what kind of headspace I'm in, it can really trigger the desire to like buy a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to do my best to keep it grounded in reality and not just make it seem like you have to buy all of these things. And if you find out about something from this video that's absolutely perfect for you and it'll be money well spent and you'll be really happy to have it, then that's great. I just feel like it's my responsibility as someone who tries not to promote overspending at the beginning of a best of makeup video to remind you to check yourself before you wreck yourself. You know what I mean. And if this is your first time to my channel, then you've just kind of gotten a dose of what I'm about. I love beauty. I love reviewing it. I love celebrating it, but I'm aware that there's a dark side sometimes to the beauty community on YouTube. Consuming content that celebrates this stuff that we all love so much can sometimes lead to overspending, and I try to mitigate that. So if you enjoy this and if that all sounds good to you, please subscribe. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Okay, so I'm going category by category, kind of in no particular order. I'm just starting with lipstick because I feel like lipstick is the most obvious. Obviously, the lipstick of the year is the Merit lipstick. I would actually be as specific as to say that it's the Merit lipstick in the shade 1990 because it's a truly cool-toned, soft, nourishing brown. And it looks darker in the bullet than it swatches because all of it's pressed together and compacted in the bullet. It is a very chapsticky formula, and I have gone on at length about this, and I actually even have a whole video where it's just me swatching the entire shade range of this lipstick. I'll link that. It's like a cross between a chapstick and a lipstick. It is like, to me, the fresher, like updated version of the Bobbi Brown Crushed lip color, which was my favorite lipstick formula for years. And herein we have the takeaway. I mean, the reason that I love this color in it so much, I think, is obvious. It's just a brown that's soft enough to be very wearable for me, even though I am so pale, is hard to find. But then to find one that's in that category and is also a genuinely cool toned brown rather than being like a really warm, like orangey brown. I mean, it's a unicorn. And that's quite specific to me. But the formula, this idea of something that's a cross between a chapstick and a lipstick that's like easy to wear, but it's definitely makeup. Nourishing though, like it has skincare qualities. But again, it's definitely makeup. Like hybrid products, but that err more on the side of being makeup. And then they would just retain all of these qualities of health and ease and effortlessness that skincare products have. I do think that that is very much where my personal interest lies with lip products. The older I get, the harder it is to get like really clean lip line. My skin is a little dry and uneven around my mouth, and so I'm looking for something that both feels really nourishing and easy to apply and actually does look effortless rather than the effortful quality of like a delicately applied lipstick that has sharp edges and speaks of like makeup precision. That kind of blurred, easy lip line is both the attitude that I want to convey with my makeup and realistically the thing that works the best for me, that makes me feel like my features are being kind of really gently polished and enhanced rather than being thrown into sharp and like harsh relief by the makeup that I'm wearing. Lots of companies are trying to do hybrid products, and I feel like in many cases they don't choose choose a lane. I think that another lip product that has done really well this year and really deserves its acclaim is the Merit Serum Balm and the Merit Serum Balm Intense, which is a little bit more pigmented. This is the one that isn't as pigmented. It's actually what I have on my lips. This is in the shade Nude Nova. And I'm just mentioning this on the side, like to make a point about the Merit lipstick. It's staying in its lane as a lip treatment. It's not saying that it's like some sort of gloss, lipstick, lip treatment, chapstick hybrid in a tube. It's like, no, it's a lip treatment. It has a little pigment, but it's just a lip treatment. And I think that it's successful because it has picked a lane and then again, like pulled in qualities from other products, but it's not trying to be everything. It's not trying to be everything at once. And in doing that, kind of like it ends up being sort of nothing, like you don't really know where to place it. I think that Merit did the same thing with their lipstick, but the lane that they chose was makeup, like real lipstick. It's a true lipstick, and then it has all these other good qualities. I feel like brands that are like, oh, it's a bird, it's a plane, like it's a chapstick, it's a lipstick, it's a gloss stick, you know, like brands that have, all the brands have done that, and I feel like they've all fallen short of Merit. But you know, you already knew what I was going to pick for lipstick. I had a hard time, though, recalling what I would say is the worst lipstick that I tested in 2022. Nothing springs immediately to mind as like a lipstick that I tried where I was like, no, 1,000 times no. Almost a full year ago, like in January of 2022, I tested that TikTok viral Citizen Perfect Nude lipstick in a video where I was testing a bunch of lipstick from Beauty Bay. Not lipstick, a bunch of makeup from Beauty Bay. And actually the formula was pretty impressive, but looking back, the color, it really looked bad on me. I was excited to be able to pick a pale enough nude that it was really pale on me and sort of like a yellow leaning or like a grungy enough nude that it wasn't going to be super pink on me. I was just really excited to have so many options for nude because usually nude lipsticks, like they all look vampy and they all look pink or orange on me. But I just somehow got the undertone wrong. Maybe because there was such a variety of undertones, they were a little bit more dramatic than other brands' offerings usually are. And like my teeth looked really yellow. My skin looked really weird compared to it, almost like pinker than it should compared to it. I never wore it again, and it was definitely like a no-go for me. So even though I think it was probably a little bit of user error, like if I had picked a different shade, maybe I would have loved it. I think that that was the worst lipstick that I tested this year. Okay, let's talk about foundation. I actually tested more complexion products this year than I think I've ever tested before. Since I figured out very early in this year, I think, or towards the end of last year, that I have an olive undertone to my very pale skin, I have done a better job of like narrowing it down to things that are an actual match for me and knowing when something isn't a match, why. And over the course of this year, I've realized that it's not just the olive undertone, it's the fact that my skin is desaturated, both light and not very saturated with color, which is different. They're like two separate things. And that too has helped me kind of narrow it down when I'm testing foundation products. And easily the most exciting foundation that I tried this year is this one from RMS. It's the RMS Re-Evolve Natural Finish Foundation. I did a dedicated review of this actually. I'm probably overexcited about it because the shade match for me is impeccable. It's like a desaturated, very, very pale olive, almost gray. And, you know, if you saw that video, you saw how beautiful of a match it is for my neck. It really, really is like the color that my face would be if I didn't have redness, scarring, any kind of unevenness or blotchiness or anything. It's like the color my skin was when I was a child, you know, the color my face was before I like aged into all of this stuff that I'm usually trying to gently correct for. There is another foundation product that's getting an honorable mention here, which is the Salt New York Sneaky Balm. The Salt New York products didn't show up in my overhead declutters because I store them separately, and they're that collection of products is kind of like its whole own thing. But I've kept them. I'm going to use them to continue to like compare and build palettes and stuff like that. Here's the Salt New York Sneaky Balm in the shade N13. And you can see that it too is a beautiful match for me. I put the RMS on my pointer finger so you can kind of see. They both have that kind of like desaturated gray quality. The RMS is looking a little bit brighter right here, but it darkens a tiny bit as it dries down. They're pretty close in color, but they're very, very, very different in formula. The Sneaky Balm is like a skincare-y, wildly skin-like, semi-sheer balm formula, kind of like a chapstick for the skin. The best thing about it, other than the fact that this shade is so good for me, is that it's totally undetectable on the skin. I mean, I've also reviewed this at length, and I'll link the relevant videos so you can see close-ups of me applying it. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous, like the most gorgeous kind of skin tinting product. But the reason that the RMS foundation is the winner for me is that I like a highly pigmented foundation product because I like to be able to build it up in certain places and sheer it out in others. So I can always manipulate the RMS to work for whatever I want it for. It's like extremely all-purpose for me, no matter how my skin's doing on any given day, no matter what I want. Whereas the Sneaky Balm is a little bit more of like slight enhancement for a no makeup day on a day when my skin is already doing pretty well. It's a little bit more lightweight, elegant, cool girl makeup. I love them both. I'm over the moon that I've kind of figured out my skin tone this year. I think the big winner for complexion for me is just desaturated pale olive complexion products, period, because there have been a handful of them where before there were none. But the gold medal goes to the RMS Re-Evolve foundation. I think that the worst foundation I tested this year was the Patrick Ta, unfortunately. And I was disappointed that there wasn't a shade for me. The shade range didn't go very light, and the two lightest shades were very pink and very yellow respectively. But it wasn't just that. If that was the only issue, I would have still given it a good review and I just would have said, this is a great product, but the shade range doesn't go light enough. But the issue was also kind of how it laid on the skin, how the powder interacted with it. They included powder. I just think there was a little bit of confusion about what kind of product. It was just like I was saying about lip products. It was trying to do too much. It was trying both to be a cream and a heavy duty foundation, both to be like a balm and something that you can set down that's really sturdy. And it's like it stretched itself too thin and it couldn't bear the weight of its own expectations for itself. And it didn't go well between that product and me when I reviewed it. Philosophical takeaways from my foundation picks. I mean, balm foundations, I think, are still it. I think people are really loving balm foundations. It's not just me. There's something about a balm that delivers a skin-like quality. And it's funny because the Patrick Ta foundation was trying to be a balm, and I just don't think they really committed to balm as the product, The fact that it was a balm was part of why I was so interested in reviewing it, because there's a lot of interest in balm foundations these days, especially from me. So the fact that I feel like one of the takeaways is just addressing the popularity of balms is kind of also connected to the one that was the worst and not just the one that was the best. The thing is that a balm or cream product for the skin can deliver a skin-like finish like nothing else. If it's well balanced, if it's done right, like the Salt New York Sneaky Balm, it's just the look of real skin, but you get some pigment, some coverage, depending on how pigmented the product is, as opposed to something liquid in a bottle that then dries down and like coats your skin. Now, of course, that was my first choice, but the way I'm using this is usually like mixing it with other things, mixing it with more emollient things, mixing it with primers, just applying a tiny bit, shearing it out so that it has that less detectable, more skin-like, nourishing quality, And I do think that makeup is getting like more and more refined. With every passing year, we're like, maybe we can have it all. Or the brands are getting more and more ambitious. They're like, maybe we can deliver coverage, but have it be like really incredibly skin-like and comfortable. And I think that the things that I've tended towards this year, that a lot of people have tended towards this year, when it comes to foundation, it's very that. It's like, we want to be wearing makeup, but we also want our skin to look like skin. And depending on what kind of skin you have, like whether it's dry or oily or in between, and what you need in terms of the tone of your skin and the undertone of your skin and which brand is providing that, like depending on the triangulation of all of those things, some of us are finding these like products that seem to offer the best of a bunch of worlds here and there, and it is really exciting. As opposed to like the full coverage, crusty matte foundation covered with powder of like the mid-2000 teens, I guess is what I'm thinking. I can't move away from complexion without giving a shout out to the EXA green color corrector. I'm a big fan of green color correctors specifically. I reviewed a bunch of them this year, and this was far and away the best. It was the only one that I kept in my declutter. But I don't think, actually there is a worst green color corrector, the one from Kiko Milano. It was the worst for me. It was nice and serum-y, and I think if you have very pink toned skin, like very cool toned skin, and you're trying to correct for redness, that's probably the one that will work for you. But for me, it was like the opposite of what I need. I need something literally like gray green. I also want to shout out the Kosas powder because I use it every day now since I've tested this. I've said this many times, but I feel like it's the mochi Mochi Skin powder. It helps to stabilize the makeup a little bit and take down the shine a little bit, but it doesn't mattify. It's impossible to overdo it. Color works really well for me. It's the Cloud Set powder in Airy. I can't think of like a terrible powder that I tried this year, but I definitely have a clear winner for me for the best powder, and it's this one from Kosas. And you know, it's fitting with the theme, right? Everything that I just said about how it's like, it sets the makeup, it helps to stabilize the makeup, but it doesn't totally mattify. The idea of Mochi Skin, you know what I mean? It's a plump, dewy skin that's just slightly dusted with powder. I think maybe we're angling at, or maybe it's just me, but who knows? Maybe I sort of have my finger on the pulse. I am an influencer after all. But I feel like we're sort of angling at this like enhanced but natural thing. And I mean, this isn't news. I'm not the first person to say this. I'm just noticing it coming through in all of my selections, even down to like the Merit lipstick. It's like we're wanting makeup that isn't too effortful and that speaks of skin health, like healthy skin, both on the face and on the lips and everything, but that still is makeup, like still does do the work of makeup, like has the pigment, is in like the pretty little bullet, you know? I wonder what 2023 will bring in this regard. Okay, let's talk about blush. It has to be the Phytosurgence Skin Spark Blush in the shade Condensate. I was already a huge fan of the Phytosurgence blushes. I mean, everybody is. And then this year they came out with these grungier colors of blush. And this is the grungiest. In the swatch and in the little thing, in the little pot, it looks positively gray. You know what I mean? Which I live for that. I live for a gray lipstick or a gray blush. Actually, I've never used this as a lipstick. I mean, it's mixing with the very thick layer of Make Beauty Serum Balm that was on my lips, but it did not work. So I was saying it looks gray, but it actually blends out to kind of a cool toned, slightly grungy blush color. Like it looks more natural on the skin than it looks in the pot. Kind of to my chagrin. Like I would be okay with it being even more gray, grungy, olive, desaturated, neutral, more like an actual piece of old gum, you know? But despite the fact that it blends out to an actual wearable blush color, Lace Eye, it's definitely my favorite blush of the year. This formula remains like my favorite blush formula of all time. I didn't manage to get rid of any of them in my declutter. It's really, really melty. It's like a chocolate truffle that's just at the melting point, and when you touch it, it starts to melt. That's really what it feels like. And I have a full Phytosurgence review. Again, I'll link that below so you can see me applying the blushes, talking about the formula more at length. The worst blush that I tried this year was probably the CoverGirl Clean Fresh Dewy Tint. I was so excited about it because one of them looked like it was going to be kind of an old gum color, but no, not at all. It was just like orange. They're like a very, very subpar dupe of the Glossier Cloud paints. Trying to be watercolory, but ending up being a little bit like sticky and just, I don't know, they blended out fine, but to me, they didn't quite nail it in terms of the balance between satiny, skin-like glowiness and dewiness. And again, maybe kind of like trying to do too much, but getting the proportions wrong and sort of falling flat. Not terrible. Like I'm being really, really picky here. I didn't try any blushes this year where I was just like, this is literally a piece of actual garbage. Like it's 2022. All makeup is great. Makeup is so good. Nobody's out there without the tools and the skills and without the ingredients to make like really good makeup, you know? Even CoverGirl with their sort of subpar dupe of Cloud Paint did like an okay job. It's just, I personally had no use for them. And so if we're really going there, I think that was probably the least good blush formula that I tried. And I think part of it was disappointment because the predecessor to that, which was the CoverGirl Clean Fresh, not dewy, but there was like a Clean Fresh cream blush some years ago. I really liked that product. It was a more cream formula in a tube with like a little needle nose, pointy tip squeeze tube thing. More like the Flower Beauty Blush Balm. I think those were trying to be like a dupe of Flower Beauty Blush Balm. That was a great formula. And then they came out with this like more sticky, dewy, gummy one, and it was like a step down CoverGirl. Unfortunately, the best mascara for sure that I discovered this year, but like the best that I tested this year is the one from Chantecaille. It's just a great does everything mascara, and it, you know, is healthy for your lashes. It's the longest lash mascara from Chantecaille. But you know, this was PR. It's like a $75 mascara, I think. Maybe it's not that much. Maybe it is that much. I only have it because they sent it to me for review. And you know, I cannot lie and say that it's bad. and pretend that I'm not like using it every day because I have it. So if we're really rounding them up, this is, for me, the mascara of the year. By far my most used mascara. And this is my second tube of it, but you know, they sent them both to me. I didn't spend $75 on it. So I'm speaking as a person who got it for free. And because of that, I decided to include one that's a little bit more in like the reasonable for high-end or nice mascara price range, like the kind of thing that I might buy for myself if I was out there buying mascara. And that, funnily enough, is the Make Beauty Lash Prototype. This is one that I've tried more recently. I really struggled with it at the beginning because it was so wet and thick, and I just felt like it was making all my lashes like stick together and like laden. And I usually love that quality in mascara. It wasn't just the thickness, it was like it was so wet. But I started scraping off the wand and wiping it off on a tissue so that there wouldn't be as much on the brush when I went in onto my lashes. And since I've started doing that, I've like really fallen for it because all of those qualities of like gooiness and really rich, thick, wet blackness shine when the brush isn't goopy or the mascara wand isn't goopy. And actually, it starts to develop this kind of like raspy, buildable, wispy quality that's quite beautiful. And I don't know, I'm just super into it. The Chantecaille is like my everyday, standard, old, reliable. Like I always know what I'm going to get with it. But if I want to mess with something a little bit more artistic feeling, a little bit more exciting, something that feels a little bit more on like the front edge of makeup, like it's taking a risk, it's innovative, you know, it's definitely Lash Prototype. It's wormed its way into my heart, the inkiness. And finally, this was kind of an interesting one, the eyeshadow palette category. The best eyeshadow palette that I tried this year. I mean, I immediately knew the answer when I asked myself, but it's kind of funny. It's definitely the Pat McGrath Moonlit Seduction palette, which I got for review and gave it a little bit of a mixed review because it's so homogenous. The rose mattes aren't necessarily my favorite. There aren't any baked special shades in here, which was a huge surprise. They're just like 4 pressed pans of very shiny eyeshadow. But what I said in that sort of mixed review where it was really intense, long review where I went really hard on it. What I said in that review ultimately is true. It's like you just can't go wrong. Every look is gorgeous, and every look ends up being gorgeous in this kind of like flattering, reflective, multidimensional way that either incorporates both cool and warm tones or is quite neutral. You can get a sultrier, smokier eye with it. You can get something much more sheer and washy and effortless with it. I think what I said in that review is when I first opened it, I was disappointed because I saw it and I was like, oh, it's just an eyeshadow palette with a boring color story. Again, even though that's true, I have never stopped using it since that review, like regularly. It has definitely become my most used eyeshadow palette since that review. It's probably my most used eyeshadow palette of the year, even though that review was only in, I think, August, maybe September. It's just exceedingly practical in terms of the colors that it offers, and it has the texture drama that I crave. And I think it's the combination of those two things, the neutrality, honestly, with some color so that it's not totally like dead neutral, and the texture drama, which is the same, right? There's a really sort of neutral icy white, there's a neutral gold, but then there's some color in those textured shadows as well. It's just balance. I'm a sucker for balance, and I'm also a sucker for the Pat McGrath formula. It's, you know, my favorite. She makes my favorite eyeshadows. At this point, that's how I feel. Pat is the queen. And the prize for the worst eyeshadow palette, I mean, it has to go to the Issa Maya palette. And I think that this is, well, you saw the review, or if you didn't, I recommend going to watch the review if you want all of the tea, but it's like lots of people loved it, okay? A lot of people loved it. I just didn't get along with the formulas, most of them. I need something to be softer. I need it to like crush and turn into a cream. I need to be able to manipulate it. I got hard pan on all of the shadows right away. There just wasn't enough payoff for me, not enough wet look shine. I'm not going to go on, right? Because I made like a 40-minute review talking about why I didn't get along well with that palette and being extremely detailed. And it might be that I'm not remembering like other eyeshadow palettes that I tried this year that were true garbage, because it's not that it was garbage in every single way. It's that the expectation and the reality were so wildly different for me. It was the biggest fail. Literally for half the video, I've been forgetting to reflect on what it means that I love what I love. I just got carried away with talking about the products. I'm going to go back and do a quick recap. Let's just say that the success of Phytosurgent's Condensate tells us that we all want grungier blushes. We We all want to move further from super saturated pure color pigment and towards unusual. Mix the blush with some brown is what I'm saying. Still saturated, you know what I mean? Like still strong, but not pure in terms of color. Dirty. We all want dirty blushes. That's what I'm going to say the takeaway is from the blush. I hope all the brands are listening. The thing that's interesting about my mascara pick, not the Chantecaille, which is just, a really good, really expensive mascara, but the Make Beauty one is that there is this kind of like tactile art supply quality going on. And actually that's true of the Phytosurgence blushes too. Part of why I like both of these products, even though they're so different, is that they're both so inky and pigmented and satisfying to use. It's like the quality of them feels delicious to me. Like I want to touch it. I want to put it on my face. I want to feel the process of applying it. It's all about the tactile qualities. And Make isn't like a tiny independent brand like Phytosurgence is, but it is an independent brand and it is on the small side. I mean, it is a passion project of some people who are makeup artists who are in beauty. There's a lot of love in it, a lot of individual attention to it, even though it's a much bigger brand than Phytosurgence. And I think you can really feel that in the mascara. You can feel that like love of the tactile quality of makeup in these two products. I think that that's why both of them made it onto the top of my list. And I also do think that's likely a function of there being like a real person and a real passion behind the development of the product. And the takeaway from the Pat McGrath palette, I mean, sometimes the makeup that is the most useful and performs the best, that causes you to end up with the best looks, isn't necessarily the most exciting to look at, right? At face value. I think it's helpful in this world of like passionate love of beauty, especially for someone who loves to buy like new eyeshadow palettes and get them in the mail, who loves to like own those little color palettes. It's helpful to remember that the color story of an entire palette is often not the story of what's going to be on your eyes, because you're usually just going to be using an edit of what you see there. And it works in both directions, right? An elaborate color story with a bunch of different colors that just thrills you to your very soul. You might want to buy it because you want that color story for yourself, but it's usually the case that when you use that palette, that color story that you're seeing doesn't actually transfer onto your eyes because it's just like 2 or 3 of the shadows together on your eyes. And then the opposite is going on here. It's like, I love the looks that I get on my eyes. I'm like all about, my heart double beats for the looks that I get on my eyes when I use this, but my heart doesn't double beat for the way that the palette looks, because the elegance and like the layered quality of the colors and the way they sort of blend into each other just doesn't really translate to pans. That is it. Those are my favorite pieces of makeup that I discovered and started using in 2022, along with what I think are the worst pieces of makeup in each of those same categories that I tried in 2022. If you care to share, I would absolutely love to know, what is your like top makeup discovery of 2022? Put it in the comments. What's the thing that you tried for the first time this year, or the launch that you acquired this year that you're the most excited about, or that you've been using the most? Maybe if there are enough in the comments that I haven't tried, I'll like compile them and try them. So yeah, let me know what your favorite is, but especially let me know if it's something that I haven't tried that you want me to try. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much for watching my channel. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.